Estimated 280 million people worldwide are living with depression right now. That's more than the entire population of the United States. They wake up, they commute, they clock in, they answer the emails and file the reports and eat the lunch alone at the desk. And most of them have never told a single person. Every year, depression and anxiety drain $1 trillion from the global economy in lost productivity alone. A number so enormous it has stopped meaning anything. So let's ask a different question. Who profits when this many people stay this sick? Depression is the leading cause of disability on Earth. Not cancer, not heart disease, this. Because what depression takes from you isn't always your life. It takes the part of you that wants one. It makes getting dressed feel like preparation for war. It turns a phone call into an act of courage. It is an illness invisible to everyone except the person living inside it. More than 1 billion people are now living with some form of mental health disorder, according to the World Health Organization. Among people aged 18 to 25, your generation, nearly 1 in 5 has experienced a major depressive. That is not a statistic. That is your friend, your coworker, possibly you. Treatments exist, effective ones. We have the science. So why, after decades of awareness campaigns and pharmaceutical innovation and wellness apps, are more people depressed now than ever before? The answer begins with a story told to us for 30 years, a story that was never quite true. The global antidepressant market is worth approximately $18 billion a year. It is growing at nearly 8% annually. By 2033, it is projected to reach $38 billion. That is not a healthcare system responding to a crisis. That is an industry that needs the crisis to continue. This is not a conspiracy. The people making these drugs often believe they help. Many of those drugs do help for many people, but an industry whose revenue grows in direct proportion to the number of diagnoses has structurally a financial interest in more diagnoses, not fewer, in managing your symptoms, not resolving their causes. The story went like this. Depression is caused by a chemical imbalance in your brain, specifically, not enough serotonin. Here's a drug that increases your serotonin. Take it. Get better. Move on. It was elegant. It was hopeful. It was a story that made patients feel their suffering was real, biological, treatable. And it was repeated by doctors, endorsed by medical associations, and broadcast in primetime advertisements for 30 years. There was one problem. In 2022, Professor Johann of University College London led the most comprehensive review of serotonin and depression ever conducted. The conclusion was stark. There is no clear evidence that serotonin levels or serotonin activity are responsible for depression. The theory that had justified billions of dollars in prescriptions had, in the words of the research, no convincing scientific support. Doesn't mean the drugs don't work for some people. They do, by mechanism science still doesn't fully understand. But there is a difference between a drug that provides relief and a theory that explains cause. For 3 decades, those two things were deliberately conflated. Imagine standing on a Kenyan savanna in the late 1970s, watching baboons, and slowly realizing you are watching something that explains depression in a way no pharmaceutical advertisement ever could. Robert Sapolsky, neuroendocrinologist at Stanford, spent decades doing exactly that. Every summer, back to Kenya, drawing blood, measuring stress hormones, watching what rank, power, and unpredictability do to a living body over time. What he found was this. Chronic social stress, the kind generated by low status, perceived powerlessness, and never knowing when the next blow would come, produces measurable biological damage identical to what we observe in human depression. The brain region involved in memory and emotional regulation physically shrinks under sustained exposure to cortisol. The animals that suffered most were not those who faced the most physical danger. They were the ones with no agency, the ones who couldn't predict when the attack was coming, the ones at the bottom, not because they were inherently broken, but because the structure of the group made them so. This was not a malfunction. This was a body responding, rationally, to an environment that would break any of us. Johann spent 3 years traveling the world asking one question. Not what is wrong with the brains of depressed people, but what is wrong with the world that creates them. He found 9 causes, 9 forms of disconnection, from meaningful work, from other people, from the values that actually matter to us, rather than the ones we're told to want, from the natural world, secure future. Notice what is not on that list. Serotonin. Notice what is. Everything about how modern societies are organized. Modern capitalism rewards status, appearance, and consumption, not purpose, community, or creative meaning. It produces an economy that is enormously wealthy and exhausted at its core, and it produces, as a byproduct, 280 million depressed people, many of whom are then given a pill and told the problem is inside them. In the United States alone, depression results in roughly 200 million lost working days every year. Employees struggling with unresolved depression experience a 35% drop in productivity, costing businesses $205 billion annually in absenteeism, reduced output, and medical expenses. Globally, the total cost of poor mental health is projected to reach $6 trillion per year by 2030. That is more than the GDP of Japan. And yet, on average, governments allocate just 2% of their health budgets to mental health. Many low-income countries spend less than 1%. There is no rational economic argument for this. It costs exponentially more to leave depression untreated than to address it. The neglect is not accidental. It reflects a hierarchy of priorities in which the pain of hundreds of millions of people does not register as an emergency. Where you are born determines whether your depression will be treated. In high-income countries, over 50% of people with mental disorders receive some form of care. In low-income countries, fewer than 10% receive any care at all. In low and middle-income countries, home to the vast majority of the world's population, more than 75% of people with mental disorders receive no treatment whatsoever, not inadequate treatment. And then there is Malawi, a country of 20 million people, 4 psychiatrists, not 4 per city, 4 in the entire nation, 1 psychiatrist for every 5 million people. Professor Vikram Patel of Harvard Medical School has spent his career in these gaps. His research points towards something that sounds almost too simple. You don't always need a psychiatrist. You need a trained human being with a protocol and a willingness to listen. Community volunteers, primary care workers, people who speak the same language, not just linguistically, but culturally and experientially. The evidence from Malawi, India, and Zimbabwe is unambiguous. We have the evidence. We have the treatments. We know, from Kenya to Malawi, from laboratory to savannah, from Sapolsky's baboons to Patel's community workers, that what people need is not only a drug. They need agency. They need dignity. They need to matter. And if 280 million people are living with depression right now, people who get up, go to work, hold the global economy together while carrying something no quarterly report ever measures, then the question is not whether we can afford to treat them. We cannot afford not to. We have proven, in trillion-dollar terms, exactly what that costs. The question is simpler than all of that. It has always been simpler. What would it cost us, as a civilization, to actually care?